All right. Okay, so tooling meeting, here we are, November 15th, 2019, and today we are, let's see, here is this, I'm going to paste this in the chat, the link to the minutes document. I would really appreciate it if somebody would take minutes if you're not going to be talking. Because it's hard to take minutes and talk at the same time. Anyway, so it's November 15th, and today we're not going to talk about anything except the OpenJSF Summit agenda. So the idea is, so that, to recap, the thing is we're going to have a like a collaboration session, which is essentially a fancy word for a meeting at the OpenJSF Collab Summit, which would be on, I think, the 13th and 14th of December in Montreal, which is right after the Node.js Interactive Conference. So we're going to have this meeting. I don't know when. They're still hammering out the schedule. But because we get or at least last time we did this, we got quite a few people who don't normally participate have interest in the session. So I expect that to happen again, and we should tailor our agenda accordingly. I did reach out to the Collab Summit organizers, and I was like, hey, what about a longer time, like 2 hours or more? And they said they hadn't figured out the schedule. And somebody said, I think a day or two ago, that they're working on it. But there was nothing to suggest that we couldn't do something like that. It may turn out that we cannot for reasons of scheduling, but we are kind of waiting to hear back if that's going to be possible. So that's all I know on that end. Also, I know that it's been requested not just by us or somebody, I can't remember who, but people want to be able to either, I don't know if this is Corey that brought it up, but like record the meeting or have video conferencing or streaming or something, because not everybody can be there, and it would be great to get people involved who can't be there. So I mentioned it. I don't know, I don't have high hopes, but yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So yeah, that's also in their court. So we're just kind of waiting to hear back about the schedule. But I think it's probably okay to proceed as if we're going to have a longer session and try to go that route. We can always, pull stuff out, I suppose, if we can't have a longer session. But I mean, I guess I don't think it's going to be a big issue. So that said, with the logistics and stuff, what should we talk about at the summit? I don't know if
I just got a room, so I'm wandering to it.
Okay. I'm looking in Slack. Gosh, I can't remember. Rui said something about he can't make this meeting. And I thought I asked him if he had any suggestions, and now I can't figure out where he said that. Where did he say that? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. So let's see. He says, okay, here we go. He says, I'm on board with the idea that floated around about having the first quarter of the session be a recap of what we did. And then the ongoing, so I don't know what we've accomplished. And then so the ongoing agenda items we already have lined up are parser, X signal, and then maybe the last quarter of the session onboard new ideas from attending folks, just kind of open the floor and say, hey, do you have any ideas about this? Hi, I'm not sure who Mel is, but you are here. I will push this button. Hello, Mel. Anyhow, yeah, so what do we think of Rui's idea where we kind of...
I like the first part of that. I think I was thinking it'd be a good idea as well to sort of just like recap what we've actually done over the last year.
Yeah.
We have actually accomplished some things, so it'd be good to sort of recap that for people, I guess.
Okay. Just a second, let me type this up. So I also like Rui's idea, but I kind of think we should maybe do it in a different order. So, you know, people who are just kind of coming to check it out and see what it's all about might have something in mind that they want to bring up, and might not be super interested in you know, kind of going deep into a topic they don't have necessarily any interest in. And so other than kind of this, you know, past this introduction to the group, this is what we're up, this is what we're about, and this is what we've done. Maybe at that point, it would be good to kind of add just like have a kind of open it up and say, you know, is there anything you want to talk about since you're here? And maybe time box that. And then, you know, and it, you know, if we cover their topic, you know, the people who are no longer interested in diving deep can leave and go do something else because I don't want to keep them around. And then, you know, after that, we can get into some of these agenda items that we've, if we want to, you know, that we've been talking about. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Yeah, what was I gonna? I don't know where this fits in the agenda, but one thing I think would be interesting to keep pushing at would be kind of what our relationship is with the technical steering committee and kind of what kind of continue to try to define the type of work the tooling group does in the abstract even. I don't know if how much we would want to time box that, but maybe that's just part of an introduction about what the heck the tooling group is. But I feel like we've done some pretty cool stuff, and it would be, I wonder if we try to make our relationship with the TSC more official at some point. Maybe this interactive would be a good time to push on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to discuss that more. Yeah.
Or maybe that's not good for an open meeting, but I mean, if we could define that better, then maybe that could help us have a better introduction for new folks in the room.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk. Maybe we should talk about that next session.
Yeah. Even if it's just like we're continuing, this is just an advisory group. TSC has, you know, TSC is the official technical steering committee, but this is a great place to meet some collaborators who have a little bit of sway on the project and get some ideas to push through, right?
Sure.
Well, they do kind of mention us sometimes on certain issues if they're looking at it.
Yeah, we're basically like, I mean, the way I understand, like, there's two things you can be. You can be a working group, and we're like, what are we technically, Chris? I thought a working group's more official, right?
Yeah, a working group is chartered and like has they kind of like own stuff, and the TSC defers to them on things. So like the security working group or the build working group. Yeah. So
we're more like a panel of characters who are able to contribute to the project.
Yeah, it's so for us, I think the difficulty might be that like there's a lot of there's just so many like any given feature or change in Node could have some impact on what we're doing. And so it's not always straightforward, like when we should be looped in, because there's just so many like cross-cutting issues. And so I don't think there's like really a clear, I don't know, subset of oh, this is clearly a tooling issue. I mean, maybe we could work to define those things more closely, like if it has something to do with, I don't know, shebang parsing, or something to do with I, I don't know, so we'd have to come up with that. But anyhow, I mean, yeah, I guess I don't want to get too into the weeds.
Yeah. I think my suggestion, I guess the concrete suggestion that I'm putting out there is that we have like a 5-minute introduction where we really kind of clarify what the scope is of the tooling group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that I don't fully understand, the Node.js chartering, but if I'm understanding correctly, to be chartered, we'd effectively own parts of subsystems. I think defining that would be difficult because just looking at what we've done, I mean, we've added stuff to the FS module. We're looking into adding stuff to process and child process. So it's kind of difficult because we're a bit all over the place with what we need to do.
Yeah, and I think maybe we just clearly define that and say like, hey, we're some interested parties who, some of us have the commitment to Node and we care about this stuff. So we're a good place to help land some of this work through other working groups. Maybe that's all we need to say.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know too much more about the relationship between working groups and the TSC.
Yeah, I guess I'm conflating multiple things because TSC kind of has final say on technical direction of the project, right? I understand. Like they could veto work happening if they rarely do, but they could, I think. I've never really seen it. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's like, I don't know. There's like the charter that says this is what the working group is responsible for, and the TSC in their charter says they're giving this thing to that group. And if the TSC wants to override them, they have to go back and change their own charter. You know what I mean?
Oh, interesting.
It's something like that, so it's all.
And we're more loosey-goosey, which is kind of fun actually, because we can, like Corey says, we can be swooping around on a bunch of different subsystems.
Yeah.
So I don't know, something worth talking about. Maybe we should invite someone from the TSC to say what they'd like. It would be interesting. Maybe we can get someone to come from a closely related working group to come to the meeting too, or someone from the TSC to come to the meeting. And
I'm sure we'll have somebody from the TSC there. Yeah,
and just maybe make sure that we agree. Maybe make sure there's alignment in what we all think we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that will. I think we've done enough like rogue stuff now that people are like deferring to us on some stuff, which is great. They're like, "Oh, you should talk to the tooling working group working group. You should talk to the tooling group about that." I think you've said that's come up a few times in threads.
Yeah, it comes up. Okay. So yeah, definitely we want to talk about that. We want to, list some of the accomplishments. And then, I mean, so what I would like is just kind of, let's open it up. Hey, who wants to talk about what? We have some ideas we can talk about, but if you have any burning questions or suggestions or something that you want to get out in front of people, and let's talk about it. Let's discuss. I don't know if that's, I don't know how productive that's going to be because, last time it was like 20 people or 25 people. I mean, it's not like you can, anyway. But I don't know. What
I was gonna say, I think it might be valuable to really clearly define what we mean by tooling before we open the floor up. Like, what the heck's
Sure.
tooling? Because we've had folks join the meeting who, like, there's a few definitions of tooling. Like, some people think of it purely as like Babel and the ability to, transpile and shim code. That's what I think. That's a lot of what people in the TC39 see tooling as, and we see it more like we're a bunch of people from Mocha and NYC and like create React app. Like, I think we see tooling slightly different, where it's, I don't know, still transpilation's involved, but I don't know, it's a difficult thing to fully define, I think. And people have slightly different ideas of what tooling is. Like, some people might come in and just think about it as transpilation or ESM modules. It's something people probably think of as a tooling challenge.
I think for me, I think about it as like using Node to build dev tools, like CLIs and other types of, even something like Babel or Yarn or something, or NPM.
I think that we all have different definitions too, which is
yeah, we can work on that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's an action item, because I think that kind of definitely showed in the meeting we had last year, I think, was that like we did all have different definitions of tooling. Even if like it's a very broad topic, like if we can define it in a paragraph, that would be good.
I mean, in my mind, it's command line related. Like, it's it doesn't have to be a Babel. It doesn't have to be a developer tool. Even it can just be a Unix tool thing. It can just be like a thing that goes and downloads the weather from somewhere and dumps it in your terminal, right?
Yeah, I think that's closer to my definition too, which means maybe we're like explicitly not code transpilation. Like, that's something that's something that concerns language makers more, TC39 more, because they need to shim stuff, but it's not so much a command line thing. It's more of a language feature thing. Right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, people are maybe confused about that and say, we want to talk about transpilation and stuff. And, no, that's like language stuff. I mean, it doesn't really, unless Node starts doing that for whatever, it doesn't have anything to do with Node.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well,
maybe not.
I somewhat agree with Ian's view on the idea that this is about development tools. One thing I'd say about the transpilation, I think that the actual transpilation is out of scope for us. But for example, one of the things that I'm planning on working on is enabling the ES module loader to basically do source transformations. So the actual glue, like the capability to have Babel or CoffeeScript or what have you hook into the loader, I think that's kind of where we belong. What that actual hook does is not our concern.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable distinction. Like I feel like we'll to facilitate some of the types of tooling we're trying to build, maybe we go a little outside of the scope of just a command line tool, but that's our bread and butter, maybe. What was I was gonna say something similar, Corey, where like our current interest in ESM modules relates partially to just the fact that they're difficult to write tooling around, right? Like you're having trouble. There's some fixes and additions that are needed to make NYC work effectively with ESM modules.
Yes, and not just NYC, but for example, Babel/register, anything that wants to do live transpilation of the sources. My understanding, and I haven't actually attempted to do this, but as of right now, to actually hook a transpiler into the ES module loader, I think you would have to shim the FS module and basically rewrite anytime a JS file gets loaded from node modules, which would be just scary.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we're doing a better job of defining what we think of as tooling than we were a year ago, which is awesome.
Has it been that long? Oh my God. Okay.
I think it's been, oh, maybe it hasn't been a year. It's been a little less.
No, it has been a year, I
It's been
think.
over a year because the
Yeah.
conference was in October last year.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, beginning of October.
Oh boy. Okay. Well. Yeah. Let's talk about that more. Let's talk about the TSC stuff, and then maybe somebody, I don't know, send a pull request to the README or something that maybe we can hash it out there, and then talk about it at the next meeting about, like, let's clearly define our scope as well as we can.
Yeah. Is Roy at a conference? I think it's neat that is it Rui or Roy from NPM? I don't know. It's cool that NPM's joining again too. Like, I feel like NPM is very, I think, clearly a tool, which is great. So.
Well, he was here before he was with NPM.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I agree. It is
revolving door of tooling, writing tooling, I guess. Do we have recruiters in this YouTube channel? I don't know how this works. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Ben, I mean, you're much more, you do more of these, like, running meeting things. Like, if we have 20 people there and we're like, hey, let's have a free-for-all, tell us what you think, like, what do you want to talk about? Is that going to be worthwhile?
No, I don't think. I think we need to have, like, I think we should plan the structure out a little bit better than that. Like, maybe, like, one thing we could do is we could even have people put up some ideas with sticky notes and then pick 3 common ones or something. Like, I've seen that approach to running a meeting work really well. Like, yeah, we can do something like that. Like, we can do sticky notes and say, like, okay, we have 20 people in the room. We all want to talk about a bunch of stuff. Let's take 5 minutes, write it down on a sheet of paper. And then we're going to talk about 3 of them for the last 30 minutes or something. Like, I think that could work a lot better than just a pure free fall for all.
Do we we vote? We have the room vote on the sticky notes, or what?
I think what I've seen work really well. We did this recently for actually a summit we did with my team, and we did it at NPM a few times. You have people write down some stuff, then you group it together, and a lot of the time you'll start to get some grouping. So, like, you know, it will turn out 5 people in the room want to talk about CLIs, and 3 people want to talk about, I don't know, new file system functions or something. And then we can do a little bit of grouping, and it might shake out that it's obvious, like, a ton of people want to talk about CLI stuff, or a ton of people want to talk about adding a few new methods to the FS. And then I think that could help structure the meeting a little more than just a free-for-all conversation, which I think would be worthwhile. Like, especially if we have like 2 hours, like, it really depends on the length of the meeting. I think if we say we only have an hour, I think we would just try to do a really fast introduction, a really fast discussion of the things we have done. And then maybe we go right into getting a feel for the room for the types of topics that folks are interested in. And then I think also we should really have a goal of the meeting, which is like, what do we want? Like, if we get 20 people in there, what action items do we want people to take away? And, like, even having a couple more people on this call, I think, would help, because we've actually coordinated work on this call before and gotten some pull requests into Node through conversations in this meeting. So I think maybe our action item is just join the call and help us start to build some of this stuff. Tell people how to join the meeting, right?
Right.
Don't ask people to build something. Just try to get some more bodies on this conversation.
Right. I mean, there's so many people out there building tools that are so widely used that I haven't heard from.
Exactly. I think we definitely have a pretty healthy, like, a 2-week meeting right now, though, which is great. Like, there's been other groups I'm part of that, like, I've honestly fallen off of. So I don't know. I look forward to this one. So, like I say, if we got like 4 or 5, like, that'd be a great outcome for Montreal if we had, say, 5 more people on this call. And then we're actually kind of starting to maybe had 1 or 2 more pull requests we were working on Node as a result of that.
Speaking of that, actually, I was at ReactConf a couple weeks ago, and I had a couple interesting conversations with some people there. I talked to Jason Laster, who's, I think he works at Mozilla. I think he's like in charge of the Firefox dev tools. So he was really interested. Something we've had on the agenda for a while is that like compiling CLI type tools to like a self-contained binary. And he was really interested in that for the build process for Firefox DevTools. I guess they run like a separate instance of Babel on each subdirectory. I'm not sure why, but the like boot time for that is actually like the biggest time-consuming thing in their build process. So he was really interested in that. And then I actually talked to, I have a friend who works at Zeit, who works on Next.js. But we were actually talking about, I mean, they build lots of CLI tools. And we were talking about, and I've been trying out recently their tool NCC that compiles, it basically like compiles the dependencies from your project into like a single JavaScript file. So for example, like if you're running a tool with NPX, it'll download and boot like 10 times faster because it doesn't have to download any of the other dependencies. So anyways, I think it would be really interesting to hear from them about like NCC and some of those other tools. And I think maybe even having someone from there as part of the group, I think would be really useful because they do build a lot of CLI tools.
I 100% agree. Like, I think this topic's come up a few times, and we've had the conversation with Joy about how it would technically be possible to bundle node binaries more easily with a CLI, but it kind of, you know, it's definitely a bigger technical challenge than some of the things we've taken on, I think, which has mostly been API additions. But I mean, like, I think that should be in the scope of things we think about. Like, how amazing would it be if you could ship NYC as a standalone? Well, maybe that's a bad example because I don't know, if you create React app as a standalone binary and someone doesn't even need to know it's running Node.js and they just get a semi-functional website at the other end. I don't know what that looks like.
Well, and actually Zeit had a tool like that called PKG. And they kind of moved away from that, and I'd be curious to know why. Like, for example, NCC now, it's not a binary that bundles Node with it. It just compiles your Node project into a single JavaScript file. But they actually did go down that road at one point, and yeah, I'd be curious to know.
I was talking to a startup at GitHub Universe yesterday who writes some developer tooling that I use. And they were saying like they're rating a bin for 5 different languages because they support, you know, Node, Ruby, and like 5 other languages. And they're actually really interested right now in finding a way to package a binary that could be used like cross language, like Ruby would use it, Node would use it, you know, Python would use it, but they would really like to do the development in Node.js. So they're specifically asking for something like package. Right. It's just a bit of a tangent, but I think maybe coming back to the earlier question, is this in the scope of something we care about as a tooling working group?
I mean, like for me, like I've started using NCC recently, and it's amazing. Like it speeds up your CLI tools like dramatically. So I mean, I think even just that is kind of a win there. If we're talking about writing CLI tools, they should be, you know, as fast and responsive as possible, in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I think that could be an interesting goal for 2020. That like between the other work we do, maybe we do try to take on a bigger task, like start to think about the bundling problem. Because I mean, that would be huge for just Node.js as a technology in general.
Right. Well, and that's like I said, that's been on our agenda for a while, but no one who's working on that has actually we've been able to get to the meeting. So it'd be nice to maybe try and make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we have some clients that are interested in it too. So,
yeah.
I mean,
maybe we could set a bigger goal in this meeting and say like, we have all these smaller things we want to get done, land some pull requests, but 2020 we do in each meeting want to spend a bit of time talking about bundling or something. Like maybe that's our big goal for our big audacious goal.
I mean, I like the idea of having sort of a larger goal sort of for the year. whether it's that or something else. I think that's a good idea.
All right, maybe I'll put that in the notes.
One thing I just want to mention about that, on the distribution side, like say, at least in Fedora, I can't speak about Ubuntu or the Debian side, but I know with Fedora, they're generally frown upon bundled dependencies. So I know that contradicts the idea of being able to basically put everything together in one thing. I think it would be nice though to look at, basically, is it possible to do that at the per package granularity? So in other words, instead of like NYC, basically when you start it right now, your child process ends up loading something like 450 different JavaScript files. And a lot of that is maybe, 100 things from Lodash, a couple hundred things from Babel. It would be nice if that were instead just, the few dozen packages being loaded. I don't know if that's compatible with what we're talking about, but I just wanted to mention that. It basically, if everybody starts bundling their CLI, everything into their CLIs, then I can see that becoming kind of a roadblock to getting those tools like distributed as part of Linux distributions.
Interesting. Well, I mean, we don't have to address that in this call necessarily, but that would be good. Like maybe one of the things, one takeaway there maybe is we need to start actually having some folks who understand packaging at the distribution level, like join for a meeting or something.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to just kind of say it so that it's can be considered. Yeah. I don't know that we can necessarily support that use case, or if that would basically mean that the distributions would, instead of downloading packages from NPM, maybe they just have to download the source from, the GitHub tarball. But then in that case, they're kind of stuck, creating their own like build, which I think they already kind of do because NPM install doesn't support Dester installs.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Ben, as far as like the order in which we do things, yeah, we know we want to start with the recap, and this is the scope. Do we want to move into focused discussions that we choose, or do we want to do the sticky note exercise right after that?
I think maybe doing the sticky note, like, we have a couple open conversations. Like I'd say the biggest open conversation we have is probably the command line parsing right now. And I think there's some, like, we know that Windows isn't working that well for rimref, for instance. Like we could like there's some random things like that we could talk to, but I almost would rather go into the focused discussion. I think we can throw up sticky notes about the CLI stuff and just see if there's a few sticky notes, and then we talk about the CLI work that we're still kicking around, right? So my guess is a few people will want to talk about that.
So, I mean, so basically we will add our own sticky notes for the stuff that we care about. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, I see, yeah.
It's different if we have 2 hours, right? Then maybe we can be a little it really depends on how long the session is.
Well, I think we can assume it'll be longer.
Okay.
I hope.
Because I think we could probably leave 20 minutes for how to get involved at the end though, then, because we could I would say that the fixing up Windows tests is a great way to get involved. Joining the meeting is a great way to get involved. Like we don't really have to harp on that stuff early on in the meeting. I don't know. I think probably 40 minutes would go pretty fast with the sticky note exercise. Like leave 10 minutes to figure out the sticky notes, and then 45 minutes to discuss it all. That's probably an hour right there, I would guess. So if we do like 3 topics, maybe say 15 minutes a topic or something. maybe that would be a good time. Like I would put in a sticky note. Maybe we stay, each person can put in 2 or something, and I would probably put in one that's like bundling or something like we were just talking about. And that would be a natural time to talk about that.
Okay, I put like just a rough schedule. So like 15 minutes for intro, 40 minutes to get the sticky note stuff together, 45 for discussion. Maybe that's 3 topics, 15 minutes each, and then I don't know. Let's maybe
I bet we
50
could
minutes
probably,
for discussion.
I bet we
15
could
for
probably do the whole sticky note process in 20 minutes, honestly. And then like,
yeah. Okay.
and then leave like 60 minutes for discussion in case one of them goes long or something.
Here, how about that?
Yeah.
15, 25, 65, and then 15 at the end for how to get involved. So
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Is that, I don't know, does that fit with how other folks, it does fit with what you've seen, Ian, in meetings you've been in that you like?
Yeah, I think that seems like a reasonable agenda.
Yeah. Well, it might be nice that we don't have it in the agenda, which like it might be, maybe we do this maybe we just do this in our bi-weekly or our semi-weekly meeting. Afterwards, we try to set a little bit of a roadmap based on the outcome of this meeting, maybe not try to do that as part of this meeting. So I mean, the takeaway might be like, if we have 3 really lively discussions, maybe those start to be the things we want to contribute to over the years or over the 6-month period or something, right? So that doesn't have to be an outcome from the meeting.
yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. It's
Yeah.
just whoever is going to be involved. Like if people really want this stuff and we don't care about it, I mean, sorry, right? Somebody has to come in and do the work. And so if nobody's going to be involved in doing that work, then
yeah, like I'm super excited about the bundling as an example, but we need like someone as skilled as like Joyi who has the cycles, right? So we need someone to really we need someone to drive that work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we need, yeah, for that particular thing, sure, but we need somebody who is actually using this stuff.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Who needs to do it? It's and right now, I mean, I don't need to do bundling. I mean, I could conceivably make that part of my, yearly goals or something, but there's other things that I care about because of my job or whatever else I'm working on. So
exactly. Well, just like, yeah, and I mean, that's working well for the working group so far. Like we all want file system operations, so we've all contributed a little bit to that kind of stuff. And Corey's working more on ESM stuff because he needs some fixes for NYC, and I, for some reason, care about test coverage. I don't know why.
I think maybe we need to make it clear to people like, the only way that any of this stuff is going to get done is if you participate, because this is not, we're not here to necessarily serve you.
Yeah.
We want to make it better, but we're trying to come together on ways to benefit not just the ecosystem, but it really has to benefit what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's how Node works. That's why people send pull requests.
I think what we're able to do is help facilitate people, right?
Right.
Which reminds me, yeah. Speaking of which, we should all read Roy's pull request for CLI stuff.
Yeah. But there's no roadmap for Node. There's no roadmap for tooling. I want to say. I mean, maybe we could revisit that, but it's kind of about personal action, and we're not going to just do stuff for people is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's based on the agenda of those involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Is really what it is. So if you have an agenda, get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's been working relatively well. Like we're landing a few file system functions is a pretty big deal. Like people never would have thought RimRaf would land in Node, I think. And there it landed, right? It's kind of neat.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's how Node works, right?
Yeah.
And Node seems to be doing okay. So
yeah, cool. All right, this is feeling like we have a bit of an agenda pulled together. It's great.
So we have 15 minutes. I don't know if you want your 15 minutes back, or do we want to try to dig into one of these things we were talking about, or?
I have a cool thing I can share. If
All
everyone
right.
feels like they have said enough to the agenda, if we've talked it to death.
Can we move on to Ben's thing? Are we okay with that?
Sure, if we can, if we have time, I'd like to discuss the spawn sync wrapping, if there's time.
Well, I
But
think
go ahead,
there's time for both. Mine's like a show and tell that
Yeah,
I'm excited about right now.
show and tell. Okay, show and tell.
Okay, it's test coverage related, and I'm going to be showing it off in Montreal. I should have it done a little later today. Oh, cool! It came in. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
We have Windows test coverage for Node.js now. This is from one of our Windows build servers in the Node.js in our Jenkins builds. Let's see here. There we go. So we found that we're getting coverage for the bits that we would not have had coverage for if we went to coverage.nodejs.org and went to, let's go to the same line of code.
So where is this running? So I see you're at the, okay.
965, yeah. So this is running on our build infrastructure. So this is like super close to actually being something we can do nightly.
Okay.
So this is our nightly build as it stands right now. This is the build that just came in off of one of our Windows build servers.
Who's our? Google?
The Node.js project. No, the Node.js project. So it's like our Jenkins servers.
Okay. Why is it on CodeCov? I guess I'm confused about the context of.
So the tests are running on our Linux, on our collection, our cluster of servers that we have for Node.js on Jenkins. But as it stands today, we don't get Windows coverage because we only have a Linux system running. I'm testing out codecov.io for the Node.js project because it actually allows you to take coverage from multiple systems and merge it together. So we can actually have a Linux build and a Windows build and a, I don't know, mobile build or something all run in conjunction. And then codecov will actually pull all three together into one cohesive report so that out the other end we'll actually have all the Linux lines of code showing coverage and all the Windows lines of code showing coverage. So our nightly report we'll start to get on coverage.nodejs.org will probably be percent or two higher and more indicative of actual work people could do. Because today when you start to dig into these reports, you actually often find lines like this that it's actually just that we're not currently able to track it. So I think we'll give a better indicator of actual missing lines of code that folks haven't, that folks could. So a good chance for people to contribute to the project.
So this does get run. It's just that we couldn't collect coverage on it before because
we're basically adding a new node to Jenkins that is doing Windows coverage. And then I'm proposing we use codecov.io because it has this merge functionality, which is, we shouldn't build ourselves probably. Like we could do it with just like Corey and my like Istanbul stuff can do it, but we'd have to like, I don't know, like copy the file to some remote server somewhere from each of the builds and then do it ourselves where we merge all the reports. So I think it might be better to use a service to do that for us.
I don't think it can be done without a service because, I mean, basically, like if you have tests that run on Linux and tests that run on Windows, those are two separate virtual machines. So basically, there is no master process that can say, hey, here's the results, from Windows in this directory, the results from Linux here. I mean, if we had that, we can definitely merge those. Just by basically you could run NYC report, output the JSON report, upload that to a server, and then NYC can easily merge those and print a report. But doing that without a service, to receive the merged files, I'm not sure how that would happen.
Have you proposed codecov.io to the relevant people that need to approve such a thing?
Yeah, I've been talking to various folks on the build team, so no guarantee yet, but I've been talking to a few people. because I've been having to work through the build working group to do any of this. Like I had to get access to, I have access to just the coverage build servers right now, because you can, like with our Jenkins, you can actually give limited access to machines. So I have access to a new, not yet used Windows build server, and then the old Linux build server, and we're going to start kind of trying to combine the two.
Anybody else over there interested in working on the build stuff? Over there at Google?
I think there's a chance I continue getting more involved. So I know, yeah, I think we're a little shorthanded on build, right? Like so there's not, I'm not talking about at Google, I'm talking about like on the Node.js project. I think it's been hard to keep build staffed, I believe.
Yes, it's been mostly, no, IBM. Anyway, so
yeah,
we could use some more.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, no, I'm definitely learning Jenkins a bit better as I do this project. So,
so Ben, one question I have about this: if you were to produce the merged reports, is it still possible to look at the unmerged reports? So, for example, sometimes in CI you might have a test that says, you know, if Windows skip this.
I believe so, because they show. I'm not sharing my screen right now, but I think so. If we do go the route of CodeCov, they do split it out into like distinct builds that you can then click on individually.
Okay, just wanted to bring that up because it, like for example, with the RimWrap having failures on Windows, maybe there's coverage on Linux, but there isn't coverage on Windows.
Gotcha.
You know, and that's something that, you know.
Yeah, it looks like you can download the LCOV report for each of the projects. Like you can at least download all the LCOV reports that then got combined into the final report, it looks like. So it's pretty cool. Neat. 8 minutes. Do you want to cover the topic you wanted to cover, Corey?
Yes. So yesterday I posted a ticket to the Node.js tooling. Essentially, NYC 15 is moving away from SpawnWrap, partially because SpawnWrap uses shim scripts, which have caused us many, many problems. At this point, I'd like to propose that we try and get a new feature into Node.js itself, essentially the ability to hook, to get a callback when processes are spawned. So right now I have a proof of concept repository, which basically allows you to add hooks, which get executed for any of the child process functions which spawn a new process. Obviously, these hooks cannot be async because, well, that's just the way it works. I'm hoping for feedback for not just the API, but kind of what everybody thinks it would take to actually get this into Node.js, because ultimately patching core functions is a bad thing, is kind of where I'm coming from. So I'd like to make it so that we can do, NYC can do what it needs to do without actually altering the Node.js. You know, like right now we're altering the child process module to get coverage in sub processes, and well, that's a bad thing.
What's the main things that you're modifying with the hook? Is it environment variables, or is it more than that?
Yes, for the environment variables is actually all that's being altered. The master commit of the demo repository I created actually straight passes an env object to the callback hooks. And then from there, for example, you could do, env.nycconfig equals whatever, or you could do env.node preload plus equals. Well, you'd have to make sure that, anyways, you could either set or append variables, or you could even delete variables. I have a separate pull request, which kind of provides an object to the hooks, which include the env, but also let you know, like, this is the file that's being executed. These are the args. None of the other stuff is editable. So basically, with the exception of the env, it's a read-only object.
Gotcha. I kind of ask because what would be neat? I think this is a cool feature, but we should maybe talk about it when we have more than 4 minutes. But and I think you should maybe make a candidate pull request just to start the conversation, maybe even, because it's probably not a huge amount of work. But what I was going to say is it would be neat to retire the special snowflake logic we have for the built-in V8 coverage, because it's an environment variable. It would be neat if we could instead use the same mechanism that userland tooling can use to set the environment variables as well. So.
Correct. And obviously, for the purpose of my kind of user space module, it has its own, add this event, remove this event. It kind of replicates the add and remove listener functions of the event module, but without accepting the parameter for the event name. One thing I was kind of thinking about is maybe this could work as a simply a spawn event on the process object. So process.onSpawn, and you have a function which can alter the environment, or in the case of test, like with standard version, it could hook the process spawn to basically monitor, for testing purposes, hey, we did actually execute, the get command and, do what was supposed to be done. So there are use cases where you wouldn't actually edit anything.
That makes sense to me. I think this would be, I like that this could get rid of like the weird snowflake stuff we have for nodes coverage too. So that's great. Let's just make it an agenda item for the next conversation. But I would recommend maybe making a candidate pull request, just like, because I find that works really well on Node, like, especially if it's a feature that's less than a few hundred lines of code, just like, I don't know, try adding it, refactor out the Node V8 coverage line, and like just show it. I think that will help show why it's valuable, because people will see, oh, we can retire this one weird edge case we have in the code base, as well as adding a feature, which I think people would appreciate.
Yeah, I'm not sure about. I mean, I would just go with what you have. I wouldn't, unless somebody's saying, you should really hook into the event emitter for this and make it an event. Just go with what you got.
We only have 1 minute left, so we probably put a pin in it.
Yeah.
So excited to see folks. I guess we still have one more meeting before Montreal, right? Is that correct? Yeah, so we do have one meeting before Montreal, and I think we're just going to do a more normal one. So seems like we have a pretty good agenda roughed out here. Maybe we can turn the notes from today into the proposed agenda, and to throw that up on an issue or something. So people can leave comments on it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's everything for me. Do you have any closing thoughts, Chris?
No.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Talk to you in a couple weeks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.